Now, Russia has unleashed a full-scale revenge operation by raining fire across Ukrainian cities. This after Ukraine took a bold step and struck Russia's Engels airbase. This, even as the war continues to rage on, the United States is all set to hold talks with Russia and Ukraine separately in Riyadh on Monday. Take a look at our next sport as uncertainty looms on when the temporary ceasefire will take effect in the Russia-Ukraine war.
In the countdown to a potential ceasefire, Russia is going full throttle with a revenge-style military operation. Unleashing relentless strikes on Ukraine. Russian bombs, missiles and drones are targeting several Ukrainian cities. Key infrastructure, residential homes and commercial hubs lie in ruins. Zaporizhzhia is battling a raging fire. Ukraine says a Russian attack has claimed at least 3 lives, leaving several injured. Explosions lit up the sky over Kyiv as raid sirens went off across the Ukrainian capital. With no let-up in the Russian strikes, anxious Ukrainians are scrambling for safety. These are the images from Sumy region that shares a border with Russia. Ukraine says unending drone and guided bomb strikes are driving out residents from their homes. On the front lines, the Ukrainian military is on the edge. Russia is carrying out precision strikes on Ukrainian military airfields, command posts, drone storage sites, ammunition-laden military trains, and troop concentrations. The stunning Ruzhin attacks come days after Ukraine's drone attack on Russia's Engels strategic bomber base. Craters and damaged bunkers show the impact of the strike. Russia says the attack triggered a major blast and fire about 700 km from the front lines. The aerial assaults continue in the run-up to negotiations. U.S. negotiators will meet separately with Ukrainian and Russian delegations in Saudi Arabia on Monday. U.S. West Asia envoy Steve Witkoff has set the stage for U.S.-Russia talks by reflecting on Putin-Trump's Bonhomme. Witkoff says President Putin went to his local church and prayed for Trump's well-being after the U.S. president was shot last year during his poll campaign. The coming days will tell if the Trump, Putin bonhomie and Trump's diplomacy manages to bring a full and unconditional ceasefire in the Ukraine war. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
All right, now to give us more perspective in terms of what is happening in the Ukrainian war theatre, we're joined by retired Colonel Rich Outson, who's a senior fellow at the Atlantic Council and the Jamestown Foundation, and is joining us live on WION. Now, Colonel Outson, let me in fact start off by asking you this. There's much that's been made about the bonhomie between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. But the question is obviously this, even after that phone call, how close do you think we are to a possible ceasefire deal in Ukraine?
Well, it's good to be with you, Mohammed. I think obviously we're closer than we have been in the last year or two. Trump is making an energetic effort and sending his most trusted negotiators to work on this deal. But the raw material he's working with, both in terms of the geopolitics of the conflict and the personalities, Putin and Zelensky, are not the sort to sell the farm, metaphorically speaking, and to get to a quick deal. So I suspect we are still some ways away. Look, the level of negotiators that are going to be in Riyadh this week, it does not include, for instance, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz or Secretary of State Marco Rubio on the U.S. side, fairly junior people on the Russian side, advisors.
Right.
So I don't think that we're looking at an imminent breakthrough, but progress is progress, so it should be welcomed.
Progress is progress, but a lot of people would say that it is important to look at what is happening on the ground rather than just what the leaders are talking. Although it does appear that in principle the leaders all agree, that is Donald Trump, Volodymyr Zelensky and even Vladimir Putin agree that they are moving in the right direction. But the fact is, in the last 1 week, there's been a heightened intensity in the war. The Ukrainians have carried out a daring drone attack on the Engels airbase, where the Russians house their nuclear bombers. The Russians have obviously hit back with the attack on Odessa. In your assessment, at a time when the leaders are talking peace, why is there this heightened intensity in the war?
Well, in democratic countries like the United States and India, sometimes the impression is that we are either all in war or all in peace. The truth is, especially in the Middle East and in the post-Soviet space, it's not fight, 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 talk, talk, talk. It's fight, talk, fight, talk, fight, talk. So the war continues while the negotiations are ongoing. In fact, we can expect the closer we get to a final agreed sort of end to this war, the more violent that the battlefield will become. Why? Because they're trying to set the terms for the final settlement.
Right.
Who ends up with what territory is being determined now by this escalation and fighting. In a sense, it's a sign that we're getting closer to a real and substantive end of the war.
All right. Now, a lot of military experts are pointing out that the fact that the Ukrainians carried out that daring drone attack on the Engels airbase, it could not have been done without the tacit approval and a lot of help from the Americans. With that being the case, do you think Vladimir Putin, who is such a hard nut to negotiate with, would actually be, convinced that Donald Trump here wants peace? Because leaders can say one thing, but they could be doing completely the other in reality.
Well, I've said for well over a year that if Trump came into the presidency, that his approach, in my view, and having watched him previously, would be first go to Zelensky and say, follow my lead or we're going to cut you off. And then he would go to Putin and say, take the deal or I'm going to double or triple the amount of aid that I'm giving to the Ukrainians. Now, after Zelensky largely gave Trump what he wanted, the United States turned back on the munitions flow and the intelligence flow. So yes, absolutely. I think Trump now is going to ramp up in terms of trying to pressure Putin back to the table and to take a deal. He's going to ramp up rather than reduce the amount of support he's given. And I think Putin understands this game. So it doesn't mean Trump doesn't want peace. I think Putin understands that it means that Trump is going to press hard to force Putin to take it.
All right. Interesting. Thank you very much indeed, Colonel Lardson, for joining us with that perspective there.
You're welcome.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.